Hey all, and welcome to another Nerdy Reviews. I'm your host, Zaku here, and today we're going to be reviewing ZZ Gundam, or as they always constantly say in the series, Double Zeta. I don't like calling it Double Zeta, I like calling it ZZ. Makes me think it's ZZ Top. Real quick too, just in case though, if you haven't already, if you're watching this on Twitch, make sure to follow me on my Twitch account here. If you're watching it on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe, or like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. I got a lot to, well, not a whole lot to say positively about ZZ Gundam or Double Zeta. I'm gonna call it ZZ for my sake. But if you don't like or you have something you want to say, leave a comment down below. And make sure to follow me on my Twitch account too. That's when I make my announcements of when I go live or updates of what's going on as well too. That said, let's go ahead and jump right into ZZ Gundam. I think some of you already known or well aware about that this is a series I am not excited to watch at all. I've been dreading to watch this series for a while. When I was about to start my whole entire Gundam franchise review, this is one of the very few series I absolutely dreaded coming back into. Just to give you guys an idea of what we've been doing so far. I mean, like, look at this. We've gone through quite a bit. And this is actually kind of heavy. Yeah, just to give you an idea, this is how much we've gone through, with these three on top being the newest ones that we'll be covering today. Let me try to fix everything up. It is actually pretty heavy. It doesn't look like it's heavy, but it is. Blu-rays are not heavy. They're supposed to be light. They're thinly plastic. No, this is actually kind of heavy. Anyways, so let me give you guys the gist about ZZ before I start tearing it apart limb from limb. So, the story about ZZ Gundam, this takes place right after the ending of Zeta Gundam. It is the Universal Century of 0088. We follow teenage Judo Ashita and his friends who reluctantly join up with the battle-damaged Argma as they face off against Haman and her Neo-Zeon forces. That's pretty much the sum of ZZ Gundam. There's a lot more that goes on, and it evolves furthermore too, but I'm just going to keep it as short and sweet, not like this series. So I do want to say some kind of like fun facts about this series though. As I already mentioned, this is actually a direct sequel to Zeta Gundam. Where Zeta Gundam is a direct sequel to Mobile Suit Gundam, the original series. Mobile Suit Gundam being the first, Zeta takes place almost a decade later, about 8 years or so, if I'm not mistaken, 7 years after the 1 Year War. ZZ takes right after the ending of Zeta Gundam. So, like, right after the final fight with the Titans, that's where we continue with ZZ Gundam. So that's actually kind of a cool thing. This is technically the third series in the entire Gundam franchise. So this had expectations. Mobile Suit Gundam coming back from cancellation being a solid series akin to Star Trek. We get the direct sequel to it being a phenomenal masterpiece that it is. To be followed up by ZZ Gundam. Okay. I'm trying really hard to be positive about this. I got nothing positive to say about ZZ. Oh, okay, no, that's a lie. I do have positive things. Okay, anyways. The reason why I say a lot about ZZ Gundam, this is, in the entire Gundam franchise, this is one of the most infamous Gundam series of them all. It is considered to be the worst Gundam series in the entire Gundam franchise. It is hated amongst fans, probably loved by a few fans, definitely loved by the younger kids and younger audiences. It makes sense too, the way that this was geared towards. So before I get into that little portion too, I want to give a little bit more fun factors too. So this series is known for why it's bad, because it's mostly of its childish antics, jokes, very lighthearted, very comedic throughout the entire series. But it was kind of funny because, like, halfway through the series, I would say more than halfway though, but after the 30-ish episode or so, the direction of the show slightly changes. It becomes a little bit more serious, a little bit more harsher, I would say, kind of akin to Zeta Gundam, but that's because Tomino actually changes the comical antics to a more serious nature because he's trying to gear it up towards Char's counterattack. Again, I think it was midway through the production, but a little bit more after than that. Tomino actually got greenlighted to do Char's counterattack because originally the series was going to have Char introduced in here. In fact, he was actually going to try to keep Char as the main character. Things got changed at the beginning, and then he wanted to have Char come back in the middle, kind of like setting things up for his movie. But once he got greenlit for the movie, he completely changed and altered the ending of it. So about a little bit more than halfway, he rewrote the entire remaining portion of ZZ Gundam, just to prep it up for Char's counterattack. So it was kind of interesting with the tonal change. It kind of saved some of this series. I would say some of it. I'll get to that in a little bit. So let's go a little bit more into the series. Animation-wise, animation of the series is not terribly that bad. Let me try and see if I can pull up. This is a screenshot from the opening itself. That's pretty much the animation. Although we're at more of a long shot here, but it's very much similar to what we've already seen in Zeta Gundam. I'd say that this is slightly a little bit better. I mean, it's only been a year later since ZZ was done. Or sorry, a year later since Zeta was done. So, I mean, the animation is going to be pretty much on par with Zeta Gundam. I can't really fault it for much. I can't say it can be better or anything else, because I felt like when you transition over from Zeta Gundam to ZZ Gundam, it's very similar animation. You feel like a very nice transition through, so it's not bad. Musical wise, they use a lot of music from Zeta Gundam, but it's not by a whole lot. Like half of it was music that we hear from Zeta Gundam, that very orchestral, not almost instrumental, but almost orchestral-esque music. And then we get the new music for Zeta Gundam, or ZZ Gundam, and it's very awkward. That's all I have to say. It's awkward kind of music. It fits the tone of, the cast. Oh, maybe let me make it larger for you guys. I apologize, but I mean, it kind of fits the tone of this cast, but for Gundam series, it's I don't know how to describe it. It's very very 80s-esque though, like super 80s. Which actually, I mean, if you look at a lot of these characters, I mean, like great examples of 80s characters here, like kind of going back to the animation. I don't have an image of Chara Soon, who is one of the Neo Zeon characters, but a lot of the female characters exhibit a lot of this 80s look of like Chara having half brunette, half blonde, very 80s looking attire. Ellie kind of dresses up. There's a couple of outfits that Ellie wears that very much screams 80s. Same thing with Rue. She actually has in some of her outfits like a ponytail like popping out like onto the side. Not like a traditional pony, but a ponytail popping to the side with like these like super cut ups and whatnot. I'm like, wow, this is screaming 80s. So I'm like, I just gotta point that out. I mean, it is an 80s show, but wow, it just kind of screams out there. All right, I keep dancing around with it. So let's talk about why ZZ Gundam is bad. Why everybody cries out why this is a terrible series. And it's funny, this is the second time I've watched this period. I remember watching a couple of episodes way back in the 2000s, a la Kazaa time frame. That kind of dates me a bit. I remember downloading a couple of episodes of ZZ Gundam. I remember like it was the first, third, and then the final episode. So that's as much as ZZ Gundam as I got to actually watch. It wasn't until I want to say 3 years ago, Right Stuff finally got the licensing for ZZ Gundam and published the 2 Blu-rays here for U.S. consumption. I had always heard about how bad ZZ Gundam was. I've only watched the first episode and the third episode said a whole lot about how bad it could be. Right? It really sets a nasty tone. But the ending was a different story. So that's why I kind of told you guys about, like, hey, like, the first more than half, like 30 episodes worth, I would say 30 plus episodes worth, is like very comical, childish. Then that's the bad about this series. I mean, like, our casting characters are actually really, really young. Really young. Like, okay, if you think about the original Mobile Suit Gundam, Amuro was about 14, 15, right? Camille is around about 15, 16, I believe. Judo is on the cusp of being 14, 15, if I'm not mistaken, right? Everybody else, I don't think we ever find out about Rue's age. I think she's older than Judo. But everybody else here is younger than Judo. Whereas, like, if we follow, like, in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, our cast varied. We had a few, like actual adults, like 18, 19-year-olds or higher. And we do have some younger cast members. You know, those of within Amuro's group, Kai, Hayato, Frau himself. They're like, you know, they're still in their not young teens, but they're in their mid-teens, basically. Either being 14, 15, 16, somewhere around that age frame, right? ZZ Gundam sees the exact same thing. We actually have more adults than anything else. And there are still child characters, though, or like younger, like 17, 16, right? ZZ takes all that away, makes majority of the cast members, like, kids. Yes, we do get Neo Zeon characters, but most of them are older. We do get a couple of them that are very young. And that's where they try to go with this now. They try to make... So, going from Z Gundam, which is very, very dark, very, very ominous and brooding. Empire Strikes Back, like, ending... And then we go to this. If I'm not mistaken here, Tomino does have a tendency to make, like... He makes a really, really dark or depressing series, and then he makes a lighter series. And that's where ZZ came into play. Very much with ZZ Gundam, it's, again, that... With our child cast, a lot of it's, like, all these funny, really silly antics. Ridiculous things. I dare say even plot shieldy-esque worthy, too. The humor is very, very cringy at times and super dated. I mean, back in the 80s, it probably was funny. Nowadays, I mean, like, I'm an 80s kid myself, but I just couldn't find much of this funny. I mean, I still laugh at stupid things today, but I couldn't. I mean, there are something that were actually funny, and I'll get to that too, but I mean, most of it was just swing and a miss. No real, no, not even a... I would say there's a couple of bunts, actually. There's a couple of bunts, but no true home runs or anything like that. I mean, like, if I want to dive into it, right? So a couple of the series stuff that I kind of find funny was, like, in the earlier episodes, Mashimar has these, like, fantasizations about Haman and how she expects a knight to behave or a Zeon officer to behave with space colonists and stuff. And I think it's just so funny because he fantasizes her in such a way. And I was like, I find it kind of interesting with him, and then later on, a little bit more, we find out with the whole Cyber New type stuff. But I thought that was kind of funny because some of them were pretty funny themselves. There were some other moments in the series where I kind of got a nice little laugh out, you know, just because, like, it was just like, really, guys, come on. All right, I'm gonna grant you guys got me to laugh a little bit, but come on, stuff like that. The other disappointing thing about this series is that I want to say a whole lot, but there are a lot of returning characters, obviously from Zeta Gundam, but also from the original Gundam, that make cameo appearances or are a main straight cast in this series. And it feels like they play a lesser form of themselves. It's like they try to put it in the best context for you guys. It's as if they came from a adult, like a rated R movie, right? And then they had to go on Sesame Street. That is what it feels like to me. Take, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who just did Terminator 2 or something, and then all of a sudden goes to kindergarten cop mode, where he's, like, you know, like a family man trying to be, like, nice with the kids. That's what it was. This is more poignant with Bright, for an example, who is the main captain of this series. Man, it's horrible to watch Bright being a very respectable captain to being a babysitter, essentially. And very, very, and going along with these childish antics. Fa is another character I felt really bad for too, not considering the movies because the movie hasn't come out at the time frame. Fa tries to be like a pilot and whatnot, and even though she wasn't a great pilot, though, she was actually so competent. In this series, she is so incompetent as a pilot, it baffles me that she survived the Grips War. If I had watched ZZ Gundam first and then watched Zeta, I'd be surprised that she didn't get killed off the bat, and she had plot shield like COTS. But it's just a shame to see her go down like that. Hamon's actually not terribly that bad. They make her more of a menacing character, but she doesn't do a whole lot. She does more in person. She's not really out there on the battlefield. Mostly it's these newer characters that are under her, essentially. Mashimar, Charasun, Glemmy Toto, and Rakan, for an example. Those are characters that become pretty important later on as well, but they reappear. They show up as well, and then they disappear. The series kind of follows that format of almost like a mobile suit of the day kind of thing. And the villains kind of reoccurring, like the four that I've mentioned to you already. Like, here's an example of like childish things. For an example, like the first couple of episodes, I think it was like in the second maybe the second or first episode, Yazan, for an example, comes back, but he is a far lesser savage than what he is in the series of Zeta. Like, they were trying to steal the Zeta Gundam, and what do to get Bright and everybody else away from it? They throw oranges at them. And they're having a food fight in a space dock. Yeah, that's an example of what happens, right? I always have a problem with cockpits constantly being open and, easy kill shot for a pilot in there, right? And a good portion of this first part of the series has, Judo having the cockpit constantly opened up. You had Mashimar, for whatever the at first, the cockpit wasn't installed at the time. And then later on, Mashimar just has the cockpit opened up for the suit. And why? Funny antics ensue from that one. I don't even want to consider it funny, but antics ensue from that point. So yeah, that was it on its own right there. A lot of childish behavior and mannerisms. I get it with with a teenage lead, right? You're gonna get sometimes a brooding or an angry teenager, but oh my god, Judo gets really frustrating at times. So does Beecha Mondo, my lord. And I'll talk about Beach in particular, because Mondo, as much as I don't want to like him either, he's just a stoolie that follows Beecha. Oh god. Anyways, so there's a lot. I keep saying it, but all these antics really, really brings it down. You're expecting something serious from Gundam, and ZZ does not give you that until later in the series. That said, too, the series takes forever to start. I think anybody nowadays, I can't speak for people who watch anime nowadays, but even for myself, and I'm an old school anime guy, and I watch a lot of 80s and 90s animes. I watch 2000 stuff and beyond from time to time, right? This series takes forever to get into. Usually people have a cutoff time for maybe give you a few episodes and see what it's like. ZZ has a tendency, the first 8 episodes. Let me see right here, right? It was first 8 episodes or so. We were stuck in side 1, Shangri-La, where we first meet up our majority of our cast members here. Just trying to get Judo to become the pilot and then take off from there. 8 episodes. 8 episodes of all these stupid antics and childish behavior. Even when we got out into space and finally met Rue on episode 8 or 9, I can't remember which one it was. And we meet all these other characters. The childish antics does not stop, but at least the story starts going. But 7 or 8 episodes. Oh lord, that took forever. And like I mentioned before too, halfway through the series, I would say about starting in episode 30 going forward, right? With the whole rewrite change and getting preparation for Char's counterattack, and Tomio making it slightly serious, ZZ actually had some pretty good moments. There were some pretty like heartfelt moments or like really interesting moments that you would find like in the previous two series and in any other series in Gundam too. But that all gets ruined by childish antics or childish jokes. It is quite literally like somebody having a heartfelt conversation about someone that died or what's going on, and then kind of like a South Park joke or whatnot, one of the kids decides to have a loud fart and everybody in the room laughs and completely forgets what just happened. Yeah, that's exactly what happens in ZZ Gundam. Not the farting part, but I'm just like, you have this serious moment and then it's broken by the worthless comedy. And it ruins whatever magic that moment had, in my opinion. It was just awful. There's also inconsistencies. These are the minor inconsistencies that kind of irked me as a fan. There's something, it could be as small, but there's some pretty big ones too. Like, something as small as, like, we do see, like, Zaku 2s in this series, but for some odd reason, the Zaku 2s have a panoramic 360 screen, like a lot of the newer suits. Last we checked, Zaku's only have 3 screens and are not panoramic. So that just irked me as a Zaku fan myself, so. But we get to bigger ones, like a colony drop. So, somewhat of a spoiler is there's a colony drop in this series, like some of the, like, just like the previous ones too. The problem with this colony drop is that, that when it does hit, it doesn't really, you know, like, even though this is the third in the series, Mobile Suit Gundam set the standard that, like, when it happened, it decimated the continent, right? It took out a third of Australia, is what had happened. When we watched the colony drop here, we had our characters pretty much like, if this is where the drop happened, our characters are right here. Okay? Colony drops, not even like a nuclear-esque explosion, it's just like, wind. And the characters are still fighting or still alive, and I go like, what? This is supposed to be like a catastrophic continent-ending explosion. And you're telling me none of that happened? And that our characters are still alive and they're still fighting? I'm sorry, that bothered me to death. That irritated me beyond belief. Gundam is praised for itself for being realistic. Yes, at times, just like in any other show or whatnot, there's a lot of plot shielding or whatnot. But this is the most egregious plot shielding I've ever seen, and the worst usage of trying to stay realistic or try to make something horrifying as a colony drop. Okay? Where in Zeta Gundam, you had characters like Rosamia say, like, I'm afraid of the sky falling, even though she's Cyber New type freaking out, but the sky falling, or talking about like not wanting another colony drop and the fear of what a colony drop can do. We finally see one on screen, and it amounts to nothing other than just a giant ornament on the ground. So that's something that actually bothers me greatly when it came to that. Like I said, start small and it worked its way up. That being said, too, ZZ brings about my short list of characters I absolutely hate. Now, last we left off with characters that I hate here. I believe I've already mentioned Kotz from Zeta Gundam. We can now add Beecha to that list. Now, some people might argue, like, oh, Beecha redeems himself in the series. Like, towards the end of the series, he becomes, like, a much more responsible character and doesn't do the things that he does earlier in the series. Again, my contender for what I hate about characters is that characters that endanger the lives of others callously has a plot shield around them because whatever they're doing can also get them killed. And then everyone just kind of Mary Sues around them. That's pretty much my category for why I hate these characters. Beach is no exception to that matter. He drove me nuts. His antics range from, and he does this multiple times. I don't know why he hasn't got shot or, treated with capital punishment for this, where he would steal the suits like Zeta or the ZZ Gundam and try to sell them or give them to the Neo Zeon. Now I'm pro Zeon as always, but still, this character does a lot of stupid things that can get everybody else killed. He doesn't die himself. He might have saved lives at times. But God, and then his mentality, he tried, like, the other thing is that they justify their actions. They justify, like, how do you justify being an absolute piece of garbage, doing what you just did? And it just drove me nuts. So Beecha is on that little small placard of characters I absolutely hated in the Gundam franchise. People would say, like, well, he changed. He stopped doing that midway through. I'm like, he did this like 3 or 4 times throughout the entire series. I'm sorry, it's unforgivable. One is bad enough. 3 to 4 times. No, there is no forgiveness here. That being said, I want to talk about at least some of the good things, right? So ZZ Gundam, like I mentioned before, past 30th episode or so, it got a little bit more serious. In all honesty, though, I could rag on the series because majority of the episodes are terrible. It is a slog to go through. When I first watched this series, like I was trying to talk about earlier, I was excited to watch this because finally I was going to get into watching ZZ Gundam because I want to watch all Gundam series, right? And I heard about how bad it was ZZ, and I remember the previous episodes I had watched, and I'm like, well, it can't be that bad. I mean, there's definitely worse out there. I watched it, and it was bad. It left an awful taste in my mouth, and I have horrible memories of it. Rewatching this again, I relived everything. I was hoping that maybe like a few years later, I like the rewatch series. I love the rewatch movies because I tend to pick up stuff more from rewatching again. I enjoy the ride and then I come back for the analysis is what I like to do. Sometimes I analyze first and then I enjoy the ride later. I was hoping I'm going to pick up a little bit more from ZZ Gundam. I did not. I do want to say, though, in all honesty, though, that yes, I did pick up things that I didn't really notice beforehand, and that's what I'm going to kind of talk about it, is that I would say about 7 episodes are salvageable from this series. Particularly the last 5 episodes of the series, and probably like bits and moments, like I mentioned earlier, bits and moments of the entire series that can pretty much equate to like one or 2 episodes. Most of the series is honestly, you can just rip it off from the good stuff and just chuck it in the trash. It's absolute garbage. But those few episodes I really like, and this is where I would like to talk about like where it got good, right? Is that the whole Neo Zeon Civil War. Bit of a spoilers, they kind of hinted at times, and that's okay. But Glemmy Toto versus Haman Khan, I thought that was really, really cool. They brought in a lot of like characters and they fought against each other. I really love that storyline right there. That was like, that's really great. The Neo Zeon War itself overall was such a disappointment. But then when we got the Civil War part, that was really awesome. Things got more serious. They toned down or dropped majority of the comedy and got very serious. It reminded me a lot of Zeta Gundam. The final episode was actually exciting. I didn't like. It's so polar of an opposite from the very beginning of the series to the very end of the series. Where this first episode, by the way, the first episode is a recap episode. A recap episode, by the way. So if I'm not going to count the first episode, second episode is where things actually start off. But technically, the first episode, throw out the window. It's completely useless, and you have this really solid final episode. But if you want to not count that, count the second episode as a true initiation of the series, right? It still was not that great. Too much childish antics, too many stupid jokes. It dragged on just to get to the point that what it's trying to do for that episode, which took 3 episodes, basically. And then you have the final episode, which gets everything done poignantly, and wow. The last 5 episodes, too, Tomino even exhibits and I would consider this like a child series, right? Like a children's anime. He actually went kill 'em all Tomino in the last 5 episodes, and I was like, wow, we're going back to Zeta roots here. That's awesome. Unfortunately, that's not what's gonna save this series. In short terms, the best way I can put this is that ZZ Gundam started off from an absolute masterpiece. ZZ Gundam had a lot of opportunity. Gundam was growing as a franchise, had a lot of opportunity to build off from what what Zeta Gundam gave us. And I think that the storyline that they, even though Tomino rewrote it halfway through, that rewritten portion, and they could have redone the Neo-Zeon War, would have saved ZZ. But all these childish antics, seriously, ZZ Gundam was a wasted opportunity. A wasted opportunity, and an awful follow-up to a masterpiece. I'm trying to think like sequel movies that are just an absolute letdown, and usually from the first movie to the third movie, you know, like the third movie is usually a letdown, right? I can say Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3, Matrix and Matrix Revolution. You get some other good series out there. I'm just trying to think of things. Not saying that like these movies in particular are bad, but they were just a letdown, right? But I don't know how else to describe ZZ Gundam. It is absolute, like, at least Matrix Revolution is rewatchable. Jurassic Park 3 is rewatchable. I enjoyed those movies. But ZZ Gundam, without the sake of the review itself, I don't ever want to come back to this again. Unless somebody else wants to watch this with me and want me to go through the torture with them. Sure, because I think my true enjoyment will be watching somebody else being suffering through this, and I wouldn't really care. I was like, I'm getting a show watching you just go like, no, why are they doing this? And I was like, yes, that's right, feel my pain. But yeah, this ZZ was an absolute waste of an opportunity, and easily the worst follow-up to one of the best Gundam series in the entire franchise. It's not even a question. I'm disappointed and like sad about that, but I mean, what can you do? This was done 30 plus years ago. I think I'm losing my time from 40 plus years ago. About 30. I want to say 30. I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm not great with math in my head, so. All right, so that's what I want to say about just ZZ overall, not overall, but just the highlights of what I want to talk about. I want to go to my next little portion here, and I want to talk about the suits. Okay, so I mentioned this previously, a little bit of spoilers from other series, but ZZ suits. So ZZ Gundam introduced quite a bit of suits. So Zeta actually had some really cool looking suits. There's some that were okay looking, right? You know, most of the Federation suits are the exact same ones from Zeta Gundam, because it is a direct sequel, so there's not much time that's changed, not much difference to the suits. They're okay. Zeon suits, though. If you watch my previous episodes, you know that I kind of set us up for this one, that ZZ has one of the most ugliest designs for suits I have ever seen, and Neo-Zeon suits are atrocious. It's like claw your eyes out kind of bad, especially when they're in animation. Like, the stills I'm going to show you is horrifying enough, but it's not justified enough as if you were watching them in action, because it's pretty bad. I do want to say, though, that ZZ actually brings a couple of cool suits, though, and I want to showcase some of them to you, but I'm going to show you some of the horrors of ZZ Gundam. We're going to start light here. This is a Zaku 3. This is the Zaku 3 custom. If I'm not mistaken here, this is Rakan. No, that's not Rakans. This is Mashimaru's. Yeah, Mashimaru's. Because the other one is Rakan's. His should be. Let me pull that up for you guys real quick. Zaku 3. Where's Zaku 3? Oh my lord. Here we go. Zaku 3. This is Rakan's colors, and that's how I guess it's supposed to look like or not, but you know, then we go to the traditional kind of Zaku looking, a little bit with the Zaku Kai from 0080. I can hear people go like, well, Zaku, it's a Zaku, why don't you like it? I'm like, it's not really a Zaku. You didn't see this thing right here? It looks kind of funny. Because these little two things pop up and shoot. And it's kind of like a dong gun. Yeah, that too. And like, I kind of like bulky designs, but this is way too bulky, especially for a Zaku. It's got the Zaku head. If I took off this head, you couldn't tell me if this was a Zaku body or not. Can I even show the gun? It doesn't even. I can't even show that, but it's awful. Yeah, this is just a start of what it looks like. That makes it even look worse. It looks like a bulkier, uglier Zaku. Looks like a Tarian from Gundam 00, which we'll see eventually. I don't like that design either. But let's move along. We haven't seen the worst of them. Jamaru Fin. Look at this monstrosity. And could you go, what am I looking at? From its arms and its weirdly protruded legs, it looks like some kind of weird deformed mecha dinosaur that was just not fully formed. Its mobile armor mode, though, is kind of cool. I'm not going to lie about that one, but there's not a big problem, but it's just kind of funny. Now, you can't see it. Let me see if I can pull it out here. Yeah, when it's flying like kind of like this here, right? And you can't see it in this particular angle, but it looks like an X-Wing at times flying around. That's why I'm like, it kind of looks cool like this because it looks like an X-Wing a bit. But when it transforms, why? Of all the things that it could transform into, why does it look like that? It looks like garbage. Who designed this? Who thought this would be a good suit? I mean, it is formidable in combat, but my God, it's ugly. Hey, I like my tools to be efficient, but also stylish. The Hama. Make sure I didn't see anything else yet. Never mind, hold on. This is top tier contender for the ugliest suit in this series. This thing is horrific looking. It looks like something that belongs in like a horror mecha anime series. Good lord, look at this thing. You couldn't tell, but it actually is a remote controlled arms. Not arms, but the arms can extend out and it can be used with new type powers to shoot and stuff like that. So, yeah. Although, my God, it's just ugly. But nothing takes the cake, in my opinion, than the Zaz. These things are absolute atrocious. Where is the full loadout? There you go. Look at this thing. Oh, God. I mean, yes, it's got missiles everywhere. Missiles. It is but an ugly design. From the, piss yellow to this weird round, like, I like roundish smooth designs, but this just looks so heh. That's the best way I can describe it. Heh. It's just awful. It's an awful looking suit. The terrible thing is that we see it come back in Unicorn Gundam 2. Oh my God. Booster missiles, yeah? Oh, there you go. It's got, semi-transformable. I mean, I love my transforming suits, but God. Why did they have to make such ugly designs? There's a lot of them, but I just want to highlight some of the ugliest ones in this series that I thought. But I want to talk about, besides the ugly, let's talk about something that's good. This segment's not about the ugliest suit designs. It's my favorite suit designs because, every Gundam franchise brings in something brand new. And ZZ Gundam brings in a lot of new. Most of it's bad and ugly, but there are some cool ones. Like the Arja. Riarja or Arja, I can't pronounce that correctly. This thing's actually pretty cool looking. It looks very knightish looking. In the series, it's a little bit more robust. I don't know how else we can depict it. Like, look at that. This is actually much more cleaner looking. Whew. But it's such a cool looking suit. Had a lot of promise. Chara Soon didn't really get much use out of it, but it's really, really cool looking. Speaking of Chara Soon, her final MS. Some people could be like, oh my, this is a gaudy looking mobile suit. And I agree with you just for the still itself, but if you actually watch it in motion or in animation, it actually is pretty cool. It reminds me of a Scope Dog a lot, like a very bulky Scope Dog from Votoms. It's got a lot of weaponry. I don't care for much of these kneecap beam cannons, but like it has like these like beam knuckles, the beam saber that it uses, the beam fingers. I feel like they're hokey, like on the Psycho Gundam and stuff like that. But the Gaemok does such a great job with it. I also don't mind the funnels it uses. It's kind of funny because it has like a weird backpack. Let me see if I can have a picture of it. The child funnel. Yeah, so these are the little guys that come out of it. But it's the mother funnel. So those little guys would come out of this guy. This thing would pop off from the back. It would pop off the back and then eject. So these two would eject from the suit, and then the funnels would just shoot out of the back portion itself. And then they would redock into here, which would dock back into the suit. I thought that was actually kind of cool. A little bit more out there. I mean, it's a little bit too much because normally funnels, you would already have a normal backpack, and I will show you the next one, for example, is the Queen Mantha, right? So behind the Queen Mantha, you can't really see it too much, but this is the back right here, and inside of it houses the funnels. So usually, like Hamon's Cubile, for an example, the Queen Mantha, I was going to get Mansa, that's actually pronounced Queen Mantha, or like the new Gundam Razazabi, where they would have the funnels docked on the back, and they will launch off when they can. Let me see. Here we go. The tail binder, for an example. Yep, right here. Very akin to the Cubile. I like that, and liking to the Queen Mantha design, really cool looking. We will see another suit in the future shortly. The Kshatriya is an example. Very similar to this design here, more of a reimagining of it, but very formidable. I want to call this a mobile armor, but they call it a mobile suit. I don't consider it a mobile suit. It's a very heavy duty suit. I would akin it more to an armor class. So very cool. And let me see, it's redone. Yeah, that's a pretty cool redone right there for the side stories. But we're gonna get like so there's some of the like cool looking ones, but my absolute favorites, which do reappear. One of them reappears multiple series, and another one reappears in Unicorn, if I'm not mistaken here. But here we go. These are designs, like when I say they're my favorite, they're not, they're okay by usage, but I like them because they're cute looking to me. It's really weird when I say that with a mecha design, but it's cute. I find the Kapul very cute. I like the Kapul. Here, I like the design right here. It's just something about aquatic suits I like. They got this like kind of like froggish look to them that make them a little bit cute. We got our little mono eye. Just this like overall design. It looks nice. I like it. It's cute. The mobile armor, it's forgettable. I don't care about the mobile armor, but the regular suit. Now this thing actually opens and closes. I wish I could find a better picture of it closed, because it looks just fine, and it's like a little suit. It's saying hi and shoots missiles. I was like, that's kind of cool. I like it. Very nice design. I really like the Kapul. Again, it's very roundish and smooth. Got some serrations between its arms and legs. Reminds me of the Hygog, which I find is very cute too. But if I'm going to talk about my favorite suit in the entire ZZ series, it's funny, I like all the Neo Zeon designs and suits. Not all of them, actually, but the ones I mentioned already. Like a lot of them. There's a lot of them I hate. But there's one I really, really like. And it sticks out with me, not by design, but by name too. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Babu. I love it. When I first saw this suit, I saw this back in And Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, or Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, I believe, because you can play Glemmy Toto, and you have the suit of the Babu. But when I heard the name, it was like said with such emphasis, Bawu. I love that name for some reason, Bawu. And it's such a nice, sleek design, very smooth. It's got some pointy texture, like pointed aspects of it. Reminds me of a refined Gelgoog. I really like it, but when we look at it, I like it in its regular colors. I don't care for Glemmy Toto's colors, but in these colors, I really liked it. In its motion and movements, it's actually a very fascinating looking suit. There is one thing that it does. Let me show you. This is how when I talk about when it's refined, it looks so nice. Even I would almost say it's also reminiscing of a Gabaldi too. I don't care for Gabaldi suits, but like a Gabaldi mixed with a Gelgoog. Yeah, this is what we got right here. It looks very nice. It's got a nice little cuff right here too. It's such a cool design. But the one thing about the Babu I liked about it too is it's a transforming suit. But it's a weird one. I like my transforming suits, but I don't like it when they're like the core fighter stuff, like the ZZ Gundam, where it separates into 3 pieces. We're going to see something like this again too in Victory Gundam. I mean, even the original Gundam and Gunting and Guncan did that too, whereas the ejectable core fighter and stuff like that were malleable parts with the G armor. I didn't care for those. But this is a self-contained suit. So the first half of this thing when it transforms looks like this. Doesn't look that cool right here. But if you look at it, this is more of like the design, because when you see it in motion, it looks more like this. And that's how cool that first part of the Bawu. So it's called like the Bawu Attacker. The second part is called the Bawu Nutter. It's silly, I know. It doesn't look that impressive. It just looks basically like the stomach got ejected out and then the legs went like inverted like that, and that's pretty much it. But it's a two-piece transformable fighting mobile suit, and I think it was kind of cool about that. I thought it was unique, interesting. I primarily fall in love with this suit just because of the overall aesthetics, but the name also just stuck with me. Bawu. Bawu. I don't know why I get such an enjoyment out of that one. So that's pretty much all my favorite suits from ZZ Gundam. I think, yeah, that's for our next one here. Let's move a little bit, go back into here. All right, well that ends that little portion right there. But I want to go for the next segment, and that's definitely the hey, I'm new to Gundam. Should I watch this series first? No, don't ever watch this series first. Don't start with ZZ Gundam first. In fact, don't ever watch ZZ Gundam at all. The only thing that I would say ever watch about ZZ Gundam is maybe the last 5 episodes. Throw away the entire series, just watch the last 5 episodes. But if you're gonna buy this for your collection, don't watch that. Watch the last 5 episodes. Start on actually maybe 6 episodes. The Girl from Core 3 Part 1. Just start with that one. That starts off the Civil War. Okay? That starts off the Neo Zeon Civil War. Don't start with ZZ Gundam first as a newcomer. Do yourself a favor. Not only is this the worst Gundam to represent the entire Gundam franchise, I don't know anyone beyond the age of probably like 6 that would truly enjoy the humor and the antics that you would see in this series. I can see like kids watching this as kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon and not care and get some laughs out of it. Sure. Younger audiences, I don't think they're going to have a problem with this. As you get older, maybe even if you're a little bit older and you find that kind of humor good, I mean, like, everyone has different humor, so I get it. But honestly, majority of the people, anyone who, I'm going to say if you fit within the majority, right? The humor in ZZ Gundam is not funny. The antics is irritating. And it does a great disservice to the entire Gundam franchise. You would set yourself up for failure in thinking that this is what it is to watch all of Gundam. Like getting into Gundam. And then just finding something entertaining about it, really. Don't start with ZZ Gundam first. In fact, I was glad this is towards the tail end of series I haven't watched yet, right? Like, well, this is the second time I watched ZZ Gundam, but I'm gonna say, like, By that time frame, when I had watched this, I've watched almost every other Gundam series, movies, read manga and stuff like that. And this is like on the tail end of like, I haven't had a chance to watch this in its entirety yet. That's basically it. Seriously, stay away from ZZ Gundam. That being said, let me talk to you about the overall, right? Now, being a sequel to the masterpiece of a Gundam franchise, ZZ Gundam had expectations to live up to. Unfortunately, Tomio's approach to turn this from a serious to a comedic anime series truly drops the ball here for the entire Gundam franchise. The childish antics, the off-tone comedy, absolutely obliterates any true enjoyment of this series, even when it gets to the more serious things when it shifts halfway through the entire series. ZZ Gundam is an absolute shame that could have been done so much better with the material that was provided, especially at the very end of the series. And an abomination in the entire Gundam franchise and as a Gundam series overall. Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta gets an appalling, an abysmal, stay far away from it 1 out of 5. I cannot stress how much stay away from this series. Honestly, unless you're a diehard Gundam fan or a UC fan, stay away from this series. If you do need to watch it, just because, like, you know, it does have references to Char's counterattack and stuff like that. It's referenced in Unicorn Gundam at points too, and any other future series as well. You really need to watch it. Just watch the last 5 episodes. Last 6 episodes. I promise you, that's where anything that ever is really truly mentioned about in ZZ Gundam is mentioned right there. And it got rid of majority of the comedy. It's more serious and streamlined. I would seriously say, like, if you could make ZZ Gundam into a redone version, just take the 6 episodes, take out most of the comedy that are in there, and then refine it, and you got a good solid 6 episodes. I think that could have been easily like a 3 out of 5 or so. Some people I can say, like, well, Zaku, why are you giving it a 1 out of 5 when you said the last 5 episodes? I'm sorry. 42 episodes out of 47 episodes being absolute trash for the most part. Not worth my time. And I honestly don't think it'd be worth your time either. Stay away from Double Zeta Gundam. You do yourself a favor. That being said, if you haven't already, please follow me on my Twitch account here. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like this video, even though the series is terrible. Follow me on, subscribe to my channel, and then leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think about ZZ Gundam. What do you think about my opinion about ZZ Gundam? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Were you the few that actually find this series actually fun and enjoyable? I want to hear from you, seriously, because most people that I've ever heard about this series bash this series. And I'm being very kind enough not to bash it in the way that I would normally want to bash things. But I'm trying to be, you know, YouTube friendly here and, you know, polite enough. I don't really got a lot of nice things to say about ZZ Gundam. But I'm curious what you guys got to say. Also, if you haven't already too, follow me on my Twitch account. That's when I make announcements when I go live and post all sorts of other things too. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for sticking around and watching this episode. And until the next time, see you on the next episode. Take care.